presentation? You can hear me? All good? Or somebody?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so which gets me started on the exact point that I wanted to start you guys with. So we're looking at Harold Pinter's The Dumbwaiter today. So the reason I thought that we'll do a little bit of a foray, like we'll do a bit of a detour from poetry into drama, is because we've been looking at, when I last was speaking with you guys, we were looking at poetry at a stretch through the ages and different like poetic styles and all of that. But let's get a bit more into drama, because this is also the request of Kinuri, and I heard that you guys would like a bit more into like the bigger texts such as drama and novel as well. So since we're starting off with The Dumbwaiter, which is, as you know, a one-act play and relatively short when it comes to a dramatic text, I want to start with the very point that you guys were mentioning about the link that I sent, about the video that I shared with you, and what it felt like to actually watch a play as opposed to reading it. Okay, so with that, let's get started. So since we're doing our first delve into drama, which I haven't discussed with you guys before, let's have a quick intro to the genre first of all, right? So when I'm teaching you poetry, I always stress the fact that poetry is meant to be read aloud, right? Like remember, like kept on reiterating this from the start, poetry has to be read aloud. So what then is the deal with drama? Drama is a completely unique and a special kind of a genre in literature, and drama is supposed to be seen, it's supposed to be heard, it has to be experienced as a whole. So you can't ever gauge the full impact or the full effect of a dramatic text by just reading it. So that's why whenever in like literature education, like if you're learning a drama, you always have to focus on performance. You can't just focus on the text and get the essence of the drama, right? So theater or drama is a unique genre to begin with, okay? Because why? Because now when it comes to poetry or like reading a book, there's usually just like one sense or maximum two senses being involved, right? If it's poetry or reading it out loud, so your ears, like you're listening, your auditory senses are involved, or else if you're reading a book, it's generally just looking at a page and the rest, all of the work happens in your imagination, right? What happens in a theater? What happens on stage? There's a entire combination of senses suddenly being employed. So this makes it an extremely unique and also a very cool form of like literature in the genre, right? in a different genre, right? So for example, in drama, like you're employing visual senses, there's going to be props, there's lighting, there's actors, there's like action happening, right? And then the auditory senses of there's going to be sound effects, like there's different like different little noises and sounds happening in the background, there's going to be music, there's score. And what is olfactory? So olfactory is like the sense of smell, right? Sometimes in like modern theater productions, you can even involve like a sense of smell by, I don't know, setting off some sort of a perfume. You just drop like maybe like a smoke bomb or something, and then scent goes off. So you indulge, like the audience suddenly gets like a smell, like you're getting a whiff of something burning. Do you smell smoke in there? Something is happening, right? It can be tactile. So what is tactile? Tactile is like the what you feel, like your sense of like senses on your skin, right? So the best that I can describe this to you guys, how to create a tactile effect in theater, was I was part of a production in my 20s, and I remember in that we were doing like a rendition of The Tempest, and in that we had an actual, like while performing, there were actors on the sidelines sort of squirting water onto people. So while there was a scene of like the sea and the ocean and the tempest happening, people were spraying like water onto the audience so that you could just get like that chill of, and it feels very real, right? So it's more 3D, it's more like 5D, it's more like all dimensions are involved, right? So the most important thing I want to stress is to read or study drama needs us to pay attention to how do the words work off of the page and on the actual stage. Okay, so this is no longer just a literary text on a book. We are going to be looking at, we have to visualize, if this is a stage, how does the setup work, right? So always remember that drama theater is meant to be performed. So similar to poetry, speaking the dialogues out loud while you are like reading the text helps gain a sense of the emotion, the tone, the intent, and the emphasis. Okay, it also helps you to sort of gain insight into what's really going on in these characters' psyches. What are they really thinking? Even though the words are on the page, what do they mean when they say the words, right? So the difference with fiction, such as even if it's a short form fiction or long form fiction, the difference with fiction is that with fiction, everything is on the page and you read it and you're supposed to just imagine it in your head. You create a narrative or a version in your head, right? Whereas in theater, it includes explicit directives. It includes directions given by the dramatist. So the dramatist is telling you exactly how the stage is set. He's telling you exactly where the characters are, what are they doing, what sort of reactions are they having. So it's very controlled. It's not like, oh, like it's open to your imagination, like just think in any way you want. There's more of a sense of control about it, right? And another difference, obviously, is that there will be real humans delivering the content. Like, I don't know if in future it will be AI delivering drama to us as well, but as of now, humans deliver the theatric content. And so you are aware that there are people acting out characters on a stage. So the audience is also, as opposed to just being a reader, the audience is more aware that the illusion is being created for you. There's something created here of a sense of like an illusory, like a sort of magician's trick kind of a thing, right? So drama adopts, reflects, or recreates reality on a stage. So that's what theater does, right? And this is in the very ancient definition of drama. This is what Aristotle called mimesis. So it's literally mimicry, imitation. You imitate real life in real life action, real life situations. You imitate it on a stage, right? So keep all those points in mind when it comes to theater. Now I want you guys to think, just give me a minute to see if I can move this out of the way for me. Okay, I want you guys to think about these questions. What are the key differences between this particular genre of literature and others that you've studied, obviously, like poetry, short story, like the novel? What are the differences that you can think about in this genre of literature, right? Then I want you to think about how do these factors, like how do these differences impact your own relationship to it as a reader or a watcher. So remember, now as you can see even in this picture here, here's the stage, here are the actors in playing different characters, and here you are, you're also part of this. You are not just a passive person who's reading, you are part of this entire experience. So how does it impact your own relationship to it as a reader, right? Then think about what effects do lighting, props, setting, costumes, music, all these elements, what do they add to your reading of a play? What does it do to that text? How is the text transformed? Because you can't ever see drama as a text. You can't just see it as like something on a page. You have to watch how it transforms out in real life, right? Hence, again, why I wanted you to watch the rendition, like the play acting of the Dumbwaiter before we actually got into the a discussion of it, right? So, moving on. Let's give a brief intro of theater through the ages. Since this is our first session that we're actually doing on drama and theater, let's do like a brief overview of eras. Now, I want to stress that this is Western theater. Since we're doing English literature, we're looking only at Western theater. But apart from this, remember that theater has existed in various forms before and way in a varied sense as opposed to just Western theater. There's been Japanese theater, there's been Sri Lankan, like Oriental theater, like our, South Asian forms, Indian, kabuki, like all these different forms of theater have existed way before and while Western theater was going on. But our focus is on how Western theater has developed. So as you would know, ancient Greek or Roman theater was how it first started, followed by medieval theater, which if you're exploring in future into your undergrad or bachelor's, you will learn to know about medieval theater was all about the church controlling theater. They started putting on plays just to make people devout and believe in religion. So it was a lot about saints and miracles and like all these like very religious themes, right? Then there was Renaissance theater, Baroque theater, Elizabethan drama. Obviously you would know because you have heard of this one particular person who is the big shot of that century. So Shakespearean drama, and then there was 18th century. So it evolved in different phases with different priorities and different styles throughout these ages until it kind of came to the end of the 18th century or like the beginning of the 19th century, right? During this time, there was a bit of a stagnation. So theater is said to have gone through a decline. So it started from the ancient Greek and Roman theater, and then it was like developing and in different styles, and suddenly it went into a stagnation, and it went into this period called Victorian theater, and also this theater style of melodrama. Okay, melodrama was, I think people were kind of at a loss for ideas. They had a loss for inspiration or new sort of genesis of creativity, and it was very sort of stale drama. It was all about like melodrama is like exaggerated heroines, and like the hero comes and saves the day, and then there's the villain who is like a modern version of melodrama being continued is something like soap operas nowadays, right? Like these really cheesy movies, which or like even in Sri Lanka, like sometimes our teledramas like that typical melodramatic style. So that was where the basis of that came into film, from this idea of melodrama theater in a Victorian age, right? So there was a stagnation in theater that then suddenly gave birth to what we are going to be terming modern theater, which was a sudden upsurgence. Like it was a brilliant flourishing in theater, right? So after this period of decline and after like things sort of going down and being very like stagnating, suddenly there was a massive flourishing. And in the 19th century, this movement called realism came in. And in the 20th century, there were multiple movements, which we shall talk about like in the next slides, right? But before that, I want you guys to watch this little clip. So let's play this for you.
Today, we're diving into the dramatic and dazzling world of 19th century theatre, where gaslights glowed, moustaches twirled, and theatre became a spectacle for the masses. In the early 1800s, melodrama ruled the stage. These were plays with exaggerated characters, think evil villains, pure-hearted heroines, and brave heroes. Simple moral messages, good wins, evil loses. Music, special effects, and sensational plots. Audiences loved the thrills, fires, sword fights, shipwrecks, and actors delivered their lines with booming voices and sweeping gestures. Thanks to the Industrial Revolution, cities grew, and so did theatres. Going to the theatre became a popular night out, not just for the rich. New technologies like gaslighting, hydraulic stages, and moving scenery made shows more impressive than ever. This era gave us the idea of theatre as mass entertainment. It was accessible, exciting, and a little bit outrageous. But not everyone wanted over-the-top drama. In the mid to late 1800s, a new movement began, realism. Playwrights like Henrik Ibsen and Anton Chekhov wrote plays about real people with real problems: marriage, money, class, gender. The acting became naturalistic. The sets looked like actual homes, and the audience was meant to think, not just cheer. From melodrama thrills to realism's truth, the 19th century gave us theatrical variety and laid the foundation for the modern theatre experience. It was a century of emotion, invention, and transformation.
Okay.
Thanks for watching Theatre Bites.
You guys could hear the video, right? Can I have someone, you heard it, the sound?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So that gave you a brief overview of in that 1800s, like the start of the 19th century, how theatre evolved from this sort of melodramatic heroines and sentimental and all of that, started moving into this movement called realism. So realism is a movement which is all about depicting real life on stage instead of it as a entertainment where you just like it's supposed to be a good laugh and you go there and have a great experience and go haha and come home. Instead of that, realism was about depicting actual social issues and actual problems on stage, right? So let's see how realism like came about and what happened next. Okay. Right. So this brings us to the period called modern drama. So modern drama is the period we're focusing on specifically because you guys have picked like the two plays that you're looking at, mostly The Glass Menagerie and The Dumbwaiter, are both belonging to that period of modern drama that we sort of like categorize as, right? So modern drama in the 19th century, like I was saying, since early 19th century was mostly Victorian, the style was over dramatic and over emphatic acting style, and most of the productions were extremely melodramatic, right? So from there, we have Henrik Ibsen, who was a very prominent Norwegian dramatist, who was the first person to introduce this concept of realism. So he turned, and it's also called naturalism. So he turned away from this style of melodrama in theater and he started introducing like a naturalistic style onto the stage, right? So the 19th century was a really important transitional phase in this sense because it moved from, like I said, like the melodramatic, like over sort of sentimental drama into realistic, naturalistic, and much more clear portrayals of real life on stage, right? So some examples of realism was The Dollhouse by Henrik Ibsen, which I hope you guys have heard of, Cherry Orchard, Anton Chekhov, which was on our A-level syllabus like back in the day. And so these are all examples of the realist style, right? So when we're moving into the modern period of drama, you guys will hear all these words. Like it was like I said, it was a flourishing. It was, people were so creative in that period. For some reason, there was like this, at the same time, while social pressures and wars and all these horrible things were happening, that kind of pushed and motivated people to be really creative and very ingenious in their depictions of this genre. So it flourished. So there were multiple types of, so there was social realism, there was naturalism, social realism in the early 19th centuries, and you might have heard these terms. There was surrealist drama, there was theater of the absurd, epic theater. There was, have you heard of the angry young man archetype? There are plays which are with characters that are angry young men. We'll discuss more about this later, right? There were expressionist plays, experimental, tragic comedy, psychological realism. So all these, like, it suddenly burst into a different, like, varieties of really cool, like, theater styles, right? So this was mostly in the 20th century. So 19th century was mostly about realism and naturalism. Then these exploded more in the 20th century to all these different forms like tragicomedy, avant-garde, psychological kitchen sink, realism, satire, epic theater, all of these like different, like I know it's a lot of words I'm throwing at you, but just remember, because if you're going to know about drama, you should know about these, at least have heard the terms, right? So the 20th century, which was all these experimental, satire, epic theater, theater of the absurd, all of these, it brought existential themes which are often wrapped in sort of stark, minimalistic, repetitive, and cyclical narratives. Now, again, remember, what period are we talking about? The modern era. So when we're thinking modern era, let's go back to poetry. Let's think about what we learned in those poetry lessons. Remember, like during the modernist era, Eliot, Frost, like all these people, what was going on? All these like depression, misery, all these like world wars, and people were really like questioning what was the meaning of life. So here are the themes that were coming out in the 20th century, right? So there was a sense of philosophical despair. And since you can't just go on and on about tragedy, this despair was mixed with a sort of like very physical and slapstick humor. What is slapstick humor? Kind of like the Charlie Chaplin style of humor where like people slip on, I don't know, banana skins and they just like fall, and like there is laughter mixed in, like absurdity, like tragedy and absurdity mixed in. So it's a very interesting mix, right? So yeah, so the main ones we'll be focusing on are these are all different like various schools of theater in the 20th centuries, the ones we'll be focusing on are social realism. For like realism is the style that Glass Menagerie is mostly in, and it's going to be theater of the absurd, which is obviously what the Dumbwaiter, like Harold Pinter, writes in, right? And his style is also this style called comedy of menace, which you've probably heard the term, but let's delve a bit more into it today. So, like I said, the 20th century was about many schools and many styles. So, as opposed to for example, like the Shakespearean era, where it was mostly about Shakespearean style of theater, this had a burst of like different styles and movements, right? So it had multiple schools or styles of theater, and all of these were instigated by different dramatists who created unique movements in modernist drama. So I've just listed down some examples here, names that you should know and you will get to know as you move forward in like your literary studies. There was Arthur Miller, very great, like prominent American playwright. There was Harold Pinter, who was a British. Tennessee Williams, who will be studying American. And there was Beckett, Brecht, George Bernard Shaw, Antonin Artaud, who was French. So all these different, mostly from America and from Europe, like different countries in Europe, like very cool theatrical styles were coming out, right? So also remember the era. Right, modernism, remember what we spoke about? World wars, social problems, existential dread, questioning of meaning, and to a very large extent, it's still continuing today into contemporary theater and contemporary life. We still have the same problems, right? Like, why do we exist? Like, what is this world order? We're destroying our environment. We're destroying, like, the world is overpopulated. What are we really doing with life? So, all these are the questions that preoccupy the narratives, the theater, the narratives, and the stories of this generation, right? And so I think So since we're doing theater of the absurd today, so in the earlier video, we looked at how realism developed, and this is 20th century theater of the absurd, so which is what Harold Pinter's Dumbwaiter belongs to. So let's take a quick look at how the theater of the absurd also came about.
Today, we're exploring theatre of the absurd, where nothing happens twice, and somehow it means everything. Theatre of the absurd exploded onto the stage in the 1950s and 60s, following the chaos of World War II. It reflected a deep sense of existential despair, the idea that life is meaningless, logic is broken, and we're just passing time until the end. But instead of crying about it, absurdist theatre often used dark humour, confusion, and repetition to make the point. You might recognise an absurdist play by circular or non-existent plot, where nothing really happens. Repetitive or nonsensical dialogue, characters trapped in meaningless routines. And there's no clear message, just the feeling of confusion and emptiness. It's often funny, awkward, bleak, or all three. Absurdist theatre was born out of a world that no longer made sense. After 2 world wars and rising Cold War tensions, many people felt lost, like meaning, morality, and purpose had all vanished. These plays weren't meant to answer questions. They were meant to expose the chaos and make us sit with it. Major absurdist writers included Samuel Beckett for Waiting for Godot, Eugene Ionesco for The Bald Soprano, and Harold Pinter for The Dumbwaiter and The Birthday Party. Their plays might leave you confused, frustrated, or oddly amused, and that's the point. In the theatre of the absurd, life is uncertain, language fails, and we're all just waiting.
Okay.
Thanks for watching, Sid.
So I'll link these videos for you guys as well, but I'm just gonna plug in there, like if you want to get like a quick intro into the different styles of theater, even the ones we discussed before the modern theater, like the whole list of them, go and check out like Theater Bites. Like it's very small videos, but it gives you a quick intro into how theater developed through the ages, right? I'll share the link also like later when I upload this. So what did we get, like what a key point that I want to sort of emphasize from this video is she was saying that absurdist theater was not about providing answers or providing solutions, because truth be told, there are no answers to be found, right? So it's just about exposing the chaos, like exposing how meaningless and like sort of how the state of affairs of the world. It's just showing you that it's not meant to give you answers. Now, this is very different, for example, to the theater of, like, for example, the medieval era, like those morality plays, or else the melodrama that we were just discussing, which is very clear. This is good, this is bad. If you do good, you will be rewarded. If you do bad, you will be in hell. And this is what's going to happen. Like, this is a very like clear world order, very controlled, very clear. Theater of the absurd and most of modern theater is entire chaos. Like, what is happening? Like, nobody knows what's happening. Everyone's just going around in circles. Like, we are all screwed, basically. Like, that's the kind of message that modern theater kind of delivers, right? So, moving on. Let's look at our actual play. So we're looking at The Dumbwaiter by Harold Pinter. So since you all know, this was a play in the which falls in the absurdist style. So The Dumbwaiter was initially written in 1957, but from what I've seen, it looks like it was first performed in 1960. So it's written in this style of absurdism, which is generally marked by, like the previous video was also describing, it's marked by like this feeling of senselessness, like the futility of existence, like a repetition, like we're just doing things in cycles, like what's the meaning of all this, like the universe doesn't have order, everything is in chaos, right? So this is not really a style that was first created. It's not like dramatists went ahead thinking, okay, we are going to create absurd plays, right? It's something that came about as a result of that era, and different playwrights were writing theater scripts which all had these same elements. They hadn't discussed, they hadn't agreed upon it, okay, let's all write this way. But it seemed like for some reason, because of that sense of despair and melancholy and that confusion of that era, all these several playwrights seem to be writing in a similar style. So it was actually this critic called Martin Esslin who first figured it out. He was like kind of looking through different plays and he started noticing similarities, and he was like, oh, like all of these plays have this in common. None of the characters have a point in life. There's meaningless things happening, there's confusion, there's repetition. So he started noticing the similarities and he created this label called theater of the absurd. So theater of the absurd is a term that was coined by Martin Esslin, and later on all these plays were categorized under that style, right? So this movement was heavily inspired by existentialist philosophers. I don't know if you guys have heard of Camus, Albert Camus, like brilliant philosopher. He is the one who, along with Jean-Paul Sartre, he was the one, they were the ones who came up with this idea of existentialism, which is the idea of the kind of like the futility of all human endeavors, and the fact that like the human condition is absurd, basically, like none of it makes sense, right? So it's a separate philosophy. So Harold Pinter was also writing in this absurdist style. And so he was born in 1930 and he died relatively recently, like 20 years ago in 2008. So he was an English playwright, and he was also a Nobel Prize winner for literature. And he was considered one of the foremost British dramatists in the second half of the 20th century, right? So Pinter's stance, like Pinter's worldview, and the way he kind of looked at the world was influenced by, he was very, very anti-war. He had a very anti-war stance, and he was known as objector, yeah, I think that's the word, where you refuse to be part of military service at a time where everyone is being sort of drafted into the war. You say that I object to this, I'm not going to take part in this war on the basis of my values, right? So he was an objector to war. He was a critique of authoritarianism. And he's also known as being a member of this Angry Young Men movement. So Angry Young Men movement was, I think it originated in Britain, if I'm not mistaken. It was a movement of sort of like working class, like supposedly normal middle class men or working class men who were frustrated, who were angry with their conditions in life, and who were basically, they were just like pissed off. Like they were like, is this what we were born for? Like, is this the life we were supposed to be having, right? So this angry young men movement, you can see it in, as you study theater in the future, you can see it in a lot of different like plays. You will see them come out in different, when we're doing the Glass Menagerie, I can't recall the name of the main character, but that boy, he is also like a kind of like a archetype of an angry young man, frustrated with life, can't move forward, just having internal frustration and anger that he doesn't know where to place. So that sort of characters, right? So Harold Pinter's style is very predominantly like it gained a lot of popularity, so it even got a name of its own. It's called Pinteresque. So if you say that, oh, like somebody is acting or that play was really Pinteresque in style, you're kind of saying that, oh, it's very much like a Harold Pinter play, right? So that level of popularity his theater style had. And he also made popular this idea of what he called the comedy of menace. So where everything seems comical, like when you take his plays on the outside, it looks like a comedy, but there's menace. Like, what is menace? There's like threat. There is constant terror and threat and something lurking. There's something lurking around. Can you remember when we were doing like I'm thinking of like Robert Frost, like we were doing design, right? Like this idea of menace and threat like surrounding the world order, that something is going on underneath all of this, right? So all those are sort of like markers of like a Harold Pinter play. Okay, so moving on. When you actually, now you've read the Dumbwaiter, you watched the Dumbwaiter, so you can clearly see that one of the main themes and one of the main things that comes out is obviously this question of authority, right? There are these questions and sort of dilemmas that the play raises about unquestioning obedience, about the blind acceptance of authority. Like without questioning, you just blindly accept orders and what you're supposed to do. Then there are also very interesting these layers of authority. Right? So think a little bit, like when you revisit the play, go through the text now that you watched it, think about the types of authority and what are the layers, right? So Gus is under Ben, Ben is under somebody else, Ben receives direct orders from this invisible entity, and Gus only like the chain of command is created in such a way that Gus never has direct contact with like the controlling power, right? It's always through Ben that he gets his orders. So there are different layers to authority. Gus has to obey Ben, Ben has to obey somebody else. So there are like layers. There's also this sense of existential dread in a very unpredictable world. Like, what is happening? Like everything feels very surreal and unpredictable, and a very sort of like existential feeling of what are we all doing here? Like, what's the meaning of this, right? There's also the ever-present menacing threat of violence. There's always something lurking. For one thing, in the play itself, there are like physically, there are guns. As part of the props, there are guns. So you as the audience could, if you're staying in the audience, you could always be in trepidation, kind of like, could these guns go off? Could they shoot each other? Could they shoot us? Like, how do we know we're protected? Just because we're in the audience, what if one of these actors like has a breakdown or something and decides to start shooting the audience? Like, are they real guns? Are they fake guns? Right? So that symbol of violence is always there. Like, there is violence in terms of the physical guns as props. There's violence in terms of even in their conversation. I think they were once referring to like some like girl who killed a cat, and then like she was blaming the brother, and there was this violence of killing an animal, and then there's this very absurd, meaningless violence of like a old man who wanted to cross the street, and because there was traffic, he tries to go under a lorry. Do you see the absurdity? Like, none of these situations make any sense. Like, why was the old man crawling under a lorry? And then he gets run over. So like there is so much meaningless, senseless violence happening, right? It also builds this psychological tension. So when you're listening to all of this and when you're in this setting, like the play is built very much on the feeling of psychological tension. And it also holds the futility of human existence, right? And it comes about in different ways. So I'm not gonna spoon feed and tell you exactly what those are. Now I want you to think about all these points, go to the play and start examining it. Where can we see these parts? Where can we see these elements in the play, right? Also, very interestingly, there's going to be the idea of the omnipresent watcher. There's somebody watching. There is constantly an eye on the characters, on you, like someone is constantly watching and monitoring what you're doing. Now, this is a very that's why it's a comedy of menace, though he can write it, even if he writes it as the funniest thing in the world, the sense that you're constantly being watched by somebody that you can't see, that's a very like threatening and scary feeling. So always keep in mind, take a look out for this idea of this omnipresent watcher. Okay, so now we take a delve into like the actual meaning of Dumbwaiter. So as you guys know, like Dumbwaiter, it's often written as two words, but it's also written as one word. It's used interchangeably. So a dumbwaiter is a small elevator or a lift which is used to move like objects up and down. It's either food or laundry or like different goods. You can just easily move it. It's put into the wall. It's like a fixture in the wall. And if you watched horror movies enough, you should know people get stuck in dumbwaiters, and sometimes you're in I don't know, a room or a hotel, and the dumbwaiter suddenly starts creaking, and then some creepy clown comes out of it and comes to attack you. Like it's a device, sort of like a structure in the wall that can travel up and down, and honestly it's a bit creepy, like if you ask me. So the dumbwaiter, interestingly, while that is the actual like the mechanism, it also is supposed to mean a dumb waiter, like literally not dumb as in stupid, dumb as in silent, like a mute, a silent waiter or a silent server. So something that goes up and down, or someone that serves your needs, but you're not meant to be seen. You're not meant to be heard. You just follow commands. You just do what you're supposed to do, not to be seen or heard. Okay. So think about what's the symbolism. What does this dumbwaiter as a symbol? It's a very powerful symbol in the play. Now, this play is a masterpiece in a lot of ways. Think about what's the symbolism of the dumbwaiter and how does it apply to the context of the play, right? So they're used especially in restaurants and apartment houses and large private dwellings. So there's also a sense of class here. Obviously, a poor, like poverty-stricken, like lower middle class family is not going to have a dumbwaiter, because who's going to send them food orders when they want to, like they just want to order something. So it's a symbol of class as well, right? So here's a quote by a critic from an article. So the punning title, what is punning? Carrying a pun, right? So there's a pun on the word dumbwaiter. The punning title carries several layers of meaning, right? It obviously refers to the antique serving hatch, but it also applies to Gus, who is troubled by the nature of the mission, and he's questioning and troubled, but he also fails to realize that he is the chosen target. At the same time, the meaning also applies to Ben, who by his total obedience to higher authority, that he is okay with following the command to even being forced to eliminate his own partner. And that exposes his own vulnerability. Because if this higher power is ready to kill your partner, what's stopping it from killing you? Like you could be next, you could be the next one who is like disposed of, right? So think about the title and the symbol of the dumbwaiter and what the impact it carries, right? So another thing I want to point out to you, this is my personal reading and my personal idea. Think very powerfully, something that comes out to me is the idea of black and white in the play, right? Now that you've watched the play, you've seen that this could purely be a choice of artistic like direction, but they're dressed in like white shirts and like their black suspenders and their black trousers, and the guns are black, and this idea of black and white it comes out a lot in the play, right? And one of the times it comes out a lot, like go back to the play and start reading it. And when you're reading the text this time, you will discover that there are references to a lot of black and white crockery, like crockery in the sense cups and saucers, like plates, cups, and saucers. They're all in black and white. So here Gus is saying he's laid out some. So who's this unseen he? That's also something to think about. He's laid out some very nice crockery this time. It's sort of striped. There's a white stripe. So the cup is round, all the rest of it is black, then the saucer is black, except for right in the middle where the cup goes, it's white. Okay, then the plates are the same. The plates have a black stripe, and he goes on and on about this black and white crockery, right? Like why? Like I tell you, in any literature, like in any work, any piece, if it's poetry or novel or short story, the everything that the dramatist or the writer puts in is usually intentional. They don't just write because you have limited space to get your ideas across, right? So you don't just imagine and put, oh, I think it would be nice to have like a flowery cup, so let me put a description of a flowery plate here, right? So if they make an artistic choice to put something in, it's usually conscious. So I want you to think about why there is black and white crockery, like why are the cups, and like why this color scheme, black and white, black and white, black and white, right? And then again in another place where Ben is reading the newspaper, he says it's down here in black and white. Like he tells Gus, no, this actually happened. It's actually here in black and white. So the newspaper is also black and white. The crockery is black and white. So think about what's the symbolism of color here, right? Why did Pinter use this color scheme to describe these? Like go back to the play and look at those. I've also put here like the unseen mysterious figure. Think about that figure. He never comes into the picture, always present, but there is a he who is controlling the environment, the setting, the outcome, and he is the one who is in control of even the characters' lives, right? Like what happens to them. So this omnipresent power is putting new plates and cups and saucers for these two hitmen in black and white. Now, there are new plates. Like even Gus is saying these are not the previous crockery. There's like a new, he's put out some really nice crockery. So this color scheme, think about it, because black and white, again, what I want you to, when you're looking at the symbolism, remember black and white also could connote like black and white thinking, right? There's no in between black and white. You follow, like there's no creativity, no questioning. Kalusa Sudu, like there's no alu in between black and white. Like why these colors, right? So what is with the black and white crockery? Okay, something, think about it. Symbolism of the tableware. So crockery is essentially something which you use to serve like your food, your drink, like either your the food that you're giving or the drinks the tea that you're pouring. So serving devices are all in black and white. And then there's a serving hatch. So when the serving hatch is essentially the dumbwaiter, right? So there's a hatch in the wall that goes up and down, and it sends requests. Give us this, send us up this pasta dish, and send us this like bowl of whatever. So there's this idea of servitude, like someone is being served and somebody is doing the serving, right? So the reason I want you to think about this is because of the idea of a dystopian social structure. Now, we know that Pinter was very much opposed to authoritarian rule, which is like people like a higher up elite controlling the masses and telling people what to do. Like, we tell you to go to war, you go to war. You don't question what you're doing, just go straight to war. So Pinter was very much against this kind of thinking, right? So in the play, when you look at it properly, you might find that there are elements of a dystopian social structure. So what is a dystopia? You must have heard this term before, so I'm gonna throw it out to you guys. Like, how many of you have heard of a dystopian? Do you know what it is? Like, give me a quick description.
I've read a couple of fantasy novels related to this theme, but I don't think I can explain it clearly.
Okay, Kinuri?
Alternate reality kind of a thing.
An alternate reality? Yes. So alternate reality, but a bad alternate reality. Okay, so you were right, Mithuli, about like the fantasy novels. This does come up quite a bit in young adult fiction and like fantasy fiction and kino. Yes, an alternate reality. So a dystopia is essentially the opposite of a utopia. Do you know what a utopia is? So these two ideals, a utopia is a perfect society where everyone sort of shares their resources, there's community, nobody goes hungry, everybody has access to food, water, all their basic needs. So there's no power structures, there's no struggle. So this idea of a perfect society, which is impossible to be reached, right? Dystopia is the absolute opposite of that. Dystopia is a society where there is a so right down here is the sort of like the definition. It's a oppressive, authoritarian, or totalitarian regime where the elite few, like the richest or the most powerful or the most ones in control, they control the entire subjugated population. So people are just like sheep. They are just mechanisms put in a like big power structure where there are some people at the top controlling everything, right? So the way the closest that you guys would have seen this is if you watch Hunger Games. There's a dystopia. Go back to Hunger Games if you watched it before. Rewatch it if you haven't. Try watching the series. Like Hunger Games is an absolute dystopia. There's the powerful rich, the elite, controlling the poorer, downtrodden, poor, poverty-stricken classes who don't have food, who don't have access to anything, but they are controlled through fear. So individuals are stripped of free will and rights. They don't have any rights for themselves. They don't have will, and instead they're replaced with a rigid hierarchy. There's hierarchy. You follow me, I follow you. You better follow this, and everything is there's surveillance. There's a system of surveillance. Someone's always watching you, and you're supposed to conform. You're supposed to not ask questions, do what you're told, keep your head down and just do it, right? So, and elements of this sort of a dystopian social structure, I want you to think about, are there parallels in Pinter's play too? Okay, broaden your mind, push your mind, and think about it. Like, could there be parallels of this kind of a dystopia? Some elements are paranoia and fear. Okay, there's a loss of individual freedom. And then there are institutions with extreme authoritative power. They are the ones who decide everything. They're the ones who come up with the orders and the solutions and like how things should be done. They're the ones who make the decisions. Then there's supposed to be strict conformity among citizens. There's a repression of intellectuality, individuality. You can't think for yourself. And then there's also dehumanization and surveillance. So what is dehumanization? You're treated as lesser than human. You're treated like sometimes like an animal or like an object or something whose life really doesn't matter. Right? And then there's this idea of surveillance. So all of this, if you have read George Orwell's 1984, or Animal Farm, any of George Orwell's books actually, his thoughts are all about dystopia, because you have to again go back to that era. Remember, after World Wars, during those horrible times where people were dying in mass, and this is where people were questioning, where is this world heading? Are we heading towards this sort of a dystopia, right? So all these things were in their consciousness. So in a dystopian society, you can see all these sort of cogs in the wheel are turning together. So there's surveillance, there's control, there's paranoia. So surveillance creates paranoia. Paranoia creates control because people are controlled by their fear, so they abide to what they're told to do. So it's like this rigid system. So think about it, right? So then try to look at the set. Now you are watching the video. You watched the rendition of the Dumbwaiter that I asked you guys to watch, like that play. Do you remember the physical space, like a closeted small physical space with two people in it? So go back and also read the play. How does this physical space, do you feel that it could be a dystopian like sort of environment? What are the elements of dystopia in it? Like what sort of like creepy power structure is going on there, right? So think about that. Okay, so think about the basement as a space, the spatiality where they are staying. So like I was saying, now theater is no longer something on the page. There's going to be a set. There is a setting, there is a set, there's something in front of you. And this is something you are not just imagining, it's something that's crafted for you by the dramatist. He is telling you. So when the Dumbwaiter, the play opens, he tells you it's a basement room. There are 2 beds. This is all there's in the basement. There are 2 beds flat against the back wall. There's a serving hatch closed between the beds. Between the beds, there is the dumbwaiter. There's a serving hatch. And there is a door to the kitchen and the lavatory, either this one or this one of the two. There's like doors to the kitchen and the lavatory on the left. So directions. Now, this brings us to a very important part of drama as a genre, which short stories or novels or poetry doesn't have. You can hear the dramatist's voice telling you what to see and what to believe by the stage directions. So the stage directions are a crucial part of the drama. You can't leave out the stage directions or like the sort of like, because though that is the dialogue that the author or the writer or the dramatist is literally telling you how he visualizes things, who is where, what is happening, what actor is doing what. So when you're reading a drama, place crucial attention on the stage directions. What is the sort of dramatist telling you? Okay, so now look at the space of the basement. So the basement has basic primal needs. What are a human being's basic primal needs? Like to sleep, to eat, and to basically, I don't know, go to the bathroom and wash yourselves. And very basic primal needs are there. But there is restriction and lack of access. For one thing, they can't go outside. They are stuck in this basement for God knows how long. Like Gus keeps asking, like, how long have we been here? Like, it feels like such a long time. Shouldn't we be out by now? Can't I go out? Like, when is this person coming? Like he like this sense of being trapped. So there's a restriction and there's a lack of access. And there's also very interestingly, like, this to me is extremely interesting. There is a sense of dehumanization within this entire space, right? The reason I say this is I want you to think about this question. So out of like when we're thinking about the systems that are in place, like I said, there is a basement, housing, so the primal needs, housing, a place to sleep, a place to eat, and a place to do your business and go to the bathroom and all of that. But what if these systems are actually functional? Okay, if you actually look really closely at it, the bathroom isn't working, the lavatory isn't working, it won't flush. In order for them to make some food or tea or drink something, the stove isn't working. There's no gas in the first, there are no matches. Then when they do have the matches, there's no gas in the stove. So imagine a situation where these two, like somebody locked them from outside and these two are stuck inside here forever. This is inevitable death for them, right? They can't eat, they can't, I don't know, they can't go to the bathroom, they have no food. Like these, what sort of systems are these? Supposedly things have been put in place for them. There's a bathroom and a kitchen and those systems are there, but none of them are working. Right? So there's an element of dehumanization here too. There's an element of people being treated like animals, just trapped somewhere with no proper access to food, with basic rights denied. But interestingly, even though both the lavatory, both the toilet and the kitchen stove and the kitchen are not working, the service elevator works. Okay, so this elevator, which is supposed to serve people who are higher up than them, even though their conditions are so bad and they don't have like food or water or clean access to themselves, the service elevator is working. So you are supposed to put you can get your orders and you can give what is necessary for the order and send it up. So that system is functional. So that's really interesting. So look at the basement as a space. මොනවද මේකේ තියෙන්නේ? Like what are the items? What are the props? What is the space like? If you were in this space, how would you feel, right? And in this space, which systems are functional, which ones are not? Okay, something interesting to think about. So also, now that you visualize the set, now that you know the set of the stage, think about what other spaces are present off the stage. Okay, so in the drama, what other spaces are referenced to? So you know these spaces are there, but you can't see them. Setting eka is only the basement room, but there are other spaces in the play, right? The basement is the performance space. That's where the actors are. But there is a unseen there could be an unseen kitchen, like, because they keep talking about a restaurant. This place could have been a restaurant. Like, where's the kitchen? Like that, and there could be other floors. So if there is, because if this is just a basement and one other floor, it can't be just the dumbwaiter going up and down between two. There could be multiple other floors. And also upstairs, there is an upstairs which is on top of all these floors somewhere. We don't know where it is, but there's an upstairs, and there's an unseen presence there, like a really creepy person or persons who is sending down bizarre orders to these people, and he is inhabiting the space that none of us can see. Okay, so this is the brilliance of Pinter's play. Now, like, I don't know how you guys read this at school or at, like, when you were reading it, whether it just seemed like a comedy and just like some silly skit. But this, when you unpack these layers, when you really look at it like this, you will see the brilliance of, like, how he's created a masterpiece with so little, like, setting props and, like, so little dialogue even, right? So upstairs in this unseen space, there is an unseen and mysterious figure up there who is controlling the entire environment, right? So if you try to extend this, now if you think about this, even, remember I told you literature is all about interpretation. It's about how you interpret the text or these ideas of a text, right? So now think about this thing that I described to you. Even imagine it in a post-war context, thinking about people thinking in terms of like a god, like a controlling god, some unseen figure in an unseen space high above where we don't know where he is. We know that he is there, but we don't know where he is. And he is the one controlling all the petty little puny little humans who are downstairs, sending down orders and telling them what to do. And like there's like some entity controlling us, right? So very interesting to think about. So this is what you like. This play is set in the typical Pinteresque style, right? So there's an enclosed space, very unpredictable, very sort of like repetitive or cyclical and unpredictable dialogue. You don't know where it's gonna go, but there is this sense of tension, like that people are at the mercy of each other, that something could go wrong at any given point and pretense can crumble. Like this person might be wearing a mask. I'm not really sure who he is. Like the Ben and Gus, like the two hitmen. I think you're my friend. I think you're my accomplice. But at the same time, there's like a level of like distrust. Like Ben is getting commands from someone directly, and Gus is not in on the game. He is not sure. He just follows what Ben tells him. So there's this element of, I am your partner, but I'm also like not sure who you are, kind of a thing, right? So this is a typical Pinteresque style. Go back and revisit the play again and look at it in this angle, right? Then again, you can see the setting, right? You can see two men. Now this setting itself is very claustrophobic. It's very like sort of tense, and it psychologically it kind of creates like this tension, right? Two men in a closeted room awaiting orders to kill someone, which we get to know, which is even more tense if you think about it. And then this random bizarre instance starts happening where they get orders for like a kitchen menu, like for like food dishes, right? Okay, so think about how does the setting of the play contribute to the style. So what is the setting of the play? So the setting of the play is going to be conveyed to you through the stage directions and the action and dialogue. So that's how the dramatist is going to tell you. So he will tell you there's a basement. On the left, there is a door. Over here, there is a chair, like, or there is a bed. And there's going to be a dumbwaiter in the middle. So he is conveying the setting. So in general, the setting of any work of literature, or of a play, or a short story, or novel, or anything, it contains a place. There is a physical location where the events are happening. So where is the physical location here? It's inside a cramped basement, okay? Then there should be a sense of time. There is a specific hour, a day, or a historical era, or a season during which the action. Now, what happens when all of these are cut off and you only see like 3 or 4 walls? You don't know what time of the day it is. I don't think anywhere in the play, go back and revisit it, I'm not sure, but I don't think they even mention whether it's nighttime or daytime. So there's this kind of sense of like detached kind of a floating in like a eternity kind of a sense, right? Is it night, is it day, what era is this, what time is this, like we are not sure. And what does it do when it kind of, what does a playwright or a writer achieve when they create this sort of universal feeling that this could be, it creates the feeling that this could be the 1960s, but it could also be 2026, couldn't it? If you take these same characters and put them in 2026 in a basement, wouldn't it be this exact same kind of a situation? So that's that universality that's created, right? So there is also usually a sense of the duration. How long does the story in the text take? Like, does it happen within a day? Does it happen within an hour? And in the Dumbwaiter, you also have this sense of unsurety of time. You don't know how long has passed. Has it been 12 hours? Has it been 24 hours? Like how long has passed? All we know is that the two characters are trapped in there. And they keep talking about like repetitive things, but we don't know how long it's been, right? And there's also not much of a sense of any social, economic, political, or cultural climate of the world. There's we can't figure out a lot of things. Like even when they read the newspaper, they don't read something like, oh, it's the 1980s and like the Cold War is bursting out or something. They don't give specifics. There's no specific. It's like a old man got hit by a lorry and he got run over. So it could have happened in the 18th century, it could have happened in the 20th century, right? So again, that sense of timelessness, right? Now think about all those elements and think about how it impacts the style. Now, what are we talking about when we talk about style? Style would be what we're talking about, absurdism, the absurdist style, the comedy of menace. So what is comedy of menace? Comedy of menace is this Pinteresque style which blends dark or absurd humor with a very threatening and tense atmosphere, right? So you can clearly see how that plays out in the drama, but also you can see how the setting and how he's created it impacts that, right? And then what is the absurdist style? So the typical style of the theater of the absurd or the absurdists is that there's monotony, right? Like it's like every day is the same, every hour is the same, like time is passing, you do the same things, it's cyclical, repetitive, nothing really happens. But a lot of things are happening. Like when you look at it from the outside, it's like it's the same thing going over and over again. These two people are talking about the same stuff. They talk about a lavatory that isn't flushing, and then they talk about a stove that isn't working, then they talk about the newspaper, what's happening in the news, and then again they talk about the lavatory, then again they talk about like how much time until the next hit and until the the job is supposed to be done. So continuous monotonous conversations, that's nothing is really happening, but in that repetition every single time something has happened. And those are the points that you need to go back and like really absorb in the play. Like you can see that as the conversation develops, the relationship between Gus and Ben is slowly changing. Ben is becoming more authoritative, he is becoming a bit more bullying. Gus started off as questioning and nervous, and as time passes, Gus is getting more and more paranoid, and he is starting to worry and think, what am I doing here? Am I doing the right thing? So you can see these changes happening. So there's repetitive dialogue that brings out the meaninglessness meaninglessness and also the humor in a mundane situation. But it's not like very sort of like ha humor. It's funny, but it's also really creepy, right? So that's the style of Harold Pinter. Okay, so this is usually achieved by this absurd conversation between the two while they are waiting. They're just trying to kill off the time. They're bored and they're tired and they're just like fed up, right? So they're trying to kill off the time. But so some of these, like I've just pulled out a few for you guys, but go back and reread this. Like, for example, them fighting over whether you say lighting the gas or lighting the stove, like lighting the kettle. I can't remember. I think it was lighting the kettle. So they're having these meaningless arguments. So inside those, you can see there's a power struggle. So there are power dynamics happening. There's control, there's authority. There are little fights happening inside all of these, right? And then Gus starts questioning. He's like, why did he send us matches if he knew there was no gas? Why did he do that? Who sends us these matches? Who is it upstairs? Who is it? Like, what is he playing all these games for? So there's this, like, absurdity in the situation, but also this absurdity in questions and their dialogue, and everything feels very sort of senseless and funny if you look at it in a funny angle, but also very scary and depressing if you look at it in that angle. So it could be either way, right? And also then the orders start coming, right? These unheard of food, and these two people who can't even light their stove and they don't have matches or like gas to light their stove are suddenly getting requests for macaroni pastizio and omulu salad. I don't even know what these are. Liver and bacon, steak and kidney pudding. So these very elaborate, grand meals. Okay, so when you think about those requests, what is this? Could it be is it a joke? Is it actually, has somebody thought that there's a restaurant down here and is someone genuinely asking for those orders, or is it a joke? Like, is someone playing a cosmic joke on them? And again, look at the things they're asking for. These are not poor man's food, right? They are not asking for like cheese, not even cheese and crackers, but like salt and crackers, or like a potato soup, or like some basic meals is not what they're asking for. They're asking for some fancy, elaborate food. So who is this person upstairs? Do you see the beauty of Pinter? Do you see the mastery of which he says so much without saying anything? He doesn't tell us who's up there. He doesn't tell what class they are, what authority, what power structure. He doesn't talk about any of that. Just through the stage directions and the dialogue, you can see that there is some massive class difference between these two sectors, right? Upstairs and downstairs. So these absurd conversation and requests all play into these themes. So there are very now these are Pinterest features, like very Harold Pinter specific, Harold Pinter sort of like style elements. A terse back and forth. What's a back and forth? It's like people like back and forth, like you say one thing, I say another, like it just sometimes it's meaningless, but people are just like going back and forth with conversation. And then there are power games, like Ben orders Gus to do this, and go and do this, go and light the thing, go and do this, and then there's somebody else playing a power game with them through the Dumbwaiter. And also a very strong element of Pinter's plays are the pauses. So again, when you're reading the drama, don't read only the words. Okay, this is something very important you need to remember. Remember, this is theater, and in theater, silence is as equally important as dialogue. Silences are also very important, because if you are ever in a play And if you're watching a play act, you will notice if you're in the audience and there is a tense silence between the actors, that creates unbelievable tension even in the audience because you're expecting them to say something, right? You don't expect actors to just stand and stare at each other. So you have that expectation that they are going to say something. And the longer the pause, the more tense it gets, the more awkward it gets. So remember that silence is a device. Silence is not just put there randomly, like not just something that he thought was cute and put into the play. It's a very strong, powerful device. So pay attention to the pauses. When you're reading the script, look, where does he say pauses? Ben pauses or Gus pauses, or where are the pauses, right? Okay, so then that brings us to the idea of the watcher. Okay. Are you guys following me? Let me just pause for a minute because I've been talking at a stretch and I'm also a bit tired out. Are you guys following me so far? Press this in the chat. Okay, so they have said yes, and I'm just seeing Mithuli's message in the chat that it had a, so we were talking about like tactile and sort of like olfactory feelings in theater, remember at the very start? So she has mentioned that it happened at Danishree's Aloka Varsha concert where there was like each song had a specific fragrance or a smell. Do you want to explain that, Mithuli, to the others just to get you guys talking too?
Um, it was like he had he's an engineering student and all, so he had some of his friends create this device which is connected to the seats in the concert hall. It was in like it was an indoor concert, so like when the song was playing, he had projectors which had like animated stories related to the song, and then there was like this fragrance all over the like the arena. It was actually a nice experience. It was actually like watching a film or something.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, like modern performances, modern concerts have also really evolved. So they do use a lot of these theatrics and films and all of these. So that was a good example. So, see, like, which pulls us back to what we were talking about, like in theater, like that sense of olfactory, tactile, like all your senses are kind of like engaged, right? So what happens when you're watching, when you're in a concert and there's a song and then some, also think about the bigger impact of this, right? Like because humans are very sort of like sensory, like sort of attached to their senses as animals, right? So say that you're at a concert and you have like a specific song that you really, really like, and he starts playing that song. And if they release a fragrance in the air, forever you might remember that memory in relation to that fragrance, right? So every time you smell that smell, you could remember that song. So it's a very interesting way of doing things. So yeah, that's a nice example of how tactile or sort of like olfactory elements are used, right? Tisuri, I think you must have joined a bit later. Why don't you unmute and tell me whether you learned, like whether you understood so far and if it's like complex and is it clear enough for you?
Yes, Saki, it's clear.
Okay. Okay, let's see what Kinuri has said. A bit complex part for me is how or whether drama. Okay, so Kinuri is asking something that's a bit complex is that it's how or whether the drama reflects life in its rawest form, like about human existence. So I think the way how I would answer that is it does depict life in its rawest form, but not in the realist style. So we were talking about like Henrik Ibsen and even Tennessee Williams. You will see this when we do the Glass Menagerie. That is depicting life in its rawest form. Okay? That is depicting life in the sense that this is what human life is like. So there are people, working class people, going through miserable lives, monotonous lives. They have no way to escape. So they are putting a slice of life on stage. So realism is essentially, think of realism as a slice of life. So if once we start doing Glass Menagerie, you will see that that's a slice of life, like a naturalistic play. So to answer your question, Kino, absurdist theater does reflect life in its rawest form about human existence, but less in a slice of life way, in sort of imitating life. It shows it through absolute absurdity. Okay, it's more of a philosophical approach. It's more of like, so these are definitely the questions of human existence. Why are we here? What are we doing here? What's the meaning of things? Is there any meaning to the life that we're living, right? What does life mean if a man who was old and at the end of his life he was trying to cross his road just to get to the other side, why he chose to go under a lorry? Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? But on the other hand, if you think about it, it does make so much sense, because life is full of absurd moments like that. Like, if you really think about it, you could just be walking down the road and a little kid could make a decision. Okay, so let me try to relate this to like life itself and tell you how absurd life could be, right? So it's the sense that at any given moment, your life could change, or death could come for you, or some tragedy or drastic difference might happen without, in the split second of an eye. Sense that none of this makes sense. Like, why at that exact moment, why would a little kid fall into your path? So in the same way, you can question anything, like, why was this person there at this wrong time where somebody died in an accident? How did this car skid and hit somebody, right? So that's the kind of questions that the absurdists are raising. So that, like I said at the start of the sort of class as well, absurdist plays are not about providing answers. They are not about showing, oh, this is life, very sad, we grow old, we get sick, people tend to die, this is what life is like. They don't show you reality. They instead kind of show you the complications and the actual chaos of human life and push you to question. They don't give you any answer. So it's sort of like a radical approach to theater. It just makes you keep thinking and thinking. So Methuli has also noted that when there are instances when the routines and meaninglessness of life is reflected, it's just a predefined system. What do you mean by that, Mithuli? Like a predefined system?
It's like the things that are happening in life are already like it's defined for us, and we are just performing it. Like it's already there. It's like in the drama, like in the book we have in page 20, it says he's talking about the space they are in, like their jobs, and he says, I mean, you come into a place where it's still dark. You come into a room you've never seen before. You sleep all day. You do your job, and then you go away in the night again. Isn't it like the thing we do from like birth to death?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what you're trying to say is kind of like predestined, right? Like that things are already pre-planned or predestined, and we are just, so that's a basic premise of absurdism. So absurdism, I would like you guys, it's a bit of a too deep philosophy to get into right now, and I can't cover it in this like session, but sometime when you guys do like finish your A-levels and start reading, read Camus. Camus is one of the best people who promoted this idea of absurdism. So his worldview, he has written this amazing book called, it's very depressing but also very beautiful, called The Myth of Sisyphus. So the idea, when you get that book, if you get your hands on it, read it. So he came up with the idea of this figure of Sisyphus, like a mythological person called Sisyphus, who eternally rolls a rock up a mountain So that is Sisyphus. I think it's from a Greek myth, if I'm not mistaken. Like he rolls that is his punishment. That's his curse for the entirety of life. He rolls a massive boulder. It's not like a small rock, a massive boulder. He rolls it all the way up a mountain, and then when it gets to the top, he has to roll it down again. He rolls it down or sends it rolling down again, and then when it goes down, he has to get back down there and then roll it back up again. So that's his life. So okay, so this is absurdist philosophy. So in the myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus basically defines the raw philosophy of absurdism, meaninglessness. Like, what are you doing? You roll the rock up, and then you basically, you get up one day in the morning, you do your routine, you go to sleep, you get up the next day, you do the same routine, and you do this until you die. So this is what the absurdists had a problem with, right? And they say that there's no real good or bad in the world. There's no higher power deciding whether you are worthy or not worthy, or there's no eternal, I don't know, glory or happiness. It's just a meaningless life where you keep repeating. So it's a very depressing thought if you actually think about it. But that's the thing. Like in the normal world, you would think of this as depressing, but basically, essentially, this is like the core of Buddhist philosophy also, no? There's no meaning to any of these things that we're doing. Like if you guys are Buddhist, like you would have heard this and known this, like futility, like no real sense to it. So that's the absurdist philosophy. So in answer to all of your questions, that's essentially what this philosophy and this absurdist theater, absurdist books, absurdist I don't know if there's absurdist poetry actually, but definitely absurdist novels, short stories, poetry, all of them embody this same philosophy, this chaos and meaninglessness and repetition and futility of human existence is what they generally try to propagate, right? So now we get to this idea of the watcher that we were talking about. Now we think about who is watching. Who the hell is watching all these things happening, right? And who is sending the orders from upstairs? So it brings me to the question for you guys to think about these things. Who is the unseen he in the play? Is he the owner of the building? Is he the person who commands Ben and Gus, like the operations manager, or somebody who is controlling the hitman? Or is it some completely random person who doesn't even know that these guys are downstairs? And is there somebody else up there who is like on vacation or just living there? Like, what is going on? Who are these people, right? Why does he never appear? And this Gus constantly questions this. Gus is always asking, like, shouldn't he be coming? Like, isn't it? I think at a place he says, like, it's about time that he kind of came to see us, right? He can just like come and, like, we've been working for him for so long. Why have I never seen him? So there's this idea of an invisible power structure. There's a power structure in place, but you don't know who it is, what it is. You just know that someone is constantly like monitoring you, right? And that brings you the question of who is in control. Okay, so the question of who is in control brings again you back to one of the questions of core existential problems, where are we in control of our own lives? Okay, that's what the existentialists are asking. Who is in control of the world? Who is in control of our own human lives? Do we actually have control, or are we just like who was it? Methuli, right, was mentioning? Are we just living out some predestined script, what we were supposed to be doing, right? Do we actually have control? So then there's this idea of like these watchers. Where are they watching from? Like, where are they listening from? So someone is watching and listening to you all the time. So remember, we spoke about unseen spaces. Apart from the stage, like, there would be unseen spaces in other floors and levels. So here Gus, I think this was Gus, who is like, yeah, nobody really hears a thing. Like, have you ever thought of that? You never see a soul, do you? You don't hear anybody, you don't see a soul. Like, I wonder if the walls are actually soundproof. So he's thinking aloud, he's thinking. Gus is the problem here because he starts questioning. Ben is happy to just do what he's told and he doesn't want to think anymore about it. He just does it. Gus starts questioning. So here there's another quote. He's like, who is it upstairs? What is he playing these games for? What's he doing it for? Why is he doing it? So he starts getting agitated, right? And Gus is also the one becoming aware that they are sort of being tested. Okay, because who is sending them these random orders down a dumbwaiter to a basement where they know that these people don't have supplies and they don't even have a stove? Why are they sending ridiculous, bizarre orders down to them, right? So this idea of the watcher, like, really look out for it. Go back to this play. It's a very cool play. I love these little plays that don't tell you a lot, but they're really short and concise and you can unpack layers. That's where most of like the really cool stuff happen. So go back and look at who is watching whom, like what are they watching, where are they watching from, right? And the best way I can show you to get that idea of watching into your head, where is that? Give me 1 second. Okay, I think it will come after this, but yeah, we were talking about watching, and also remember that there is an element of silence, this idea of silence as authority. Okay, what do I mean when I say silence as authority? If someone asks questions, or if somebody wants answers, not giving them answers and staying silent is also a form of authority, right? So in this setting, you can see that the watcher or whoever this upstairs person is completely silent. Okay, he throws in somebody throws in an envelope with matches under the door. Somebody sends orders up and down, like written orders, but there is no verbalization. There's no voice. You can't hear a voice. There's like dead cold silence, and that itself is scary, right? Remember I told you, like, even when watching a play, pauses are scary. When there is a pause, there's something control, like the pause means control and sort of like tension, right? To hit it closer to home, think about, like, if you're having an argument with, like, somebody, say that, like, you're with your parents, like your parents are mad at you. If your mother is silent and she's like not talking to you and she's using silence, that's a form of authority, ne? That's a form of control, and it creates fear in you. It's like, this person is not answering me, this person, like, it silence is never really a very positively used in a context of human relationships, especially when it comes to power. In power games, silence is always an authoritative device. And you will see that even between Ben and Gus. So there are times where Gus is asking questions like, why is he not coming, or who is he and what's he not doing? And Ben doesn't answer. Ben just stays quiet. He either avoids the question or he doesn't answer him. He just keeps reading his paper. So there's this look at those spaces of silence, okay? So to give you a bit of that idea of the watcher, since we were talking about somebody watching, I want you to watch this small trailer about, like, the dumbwaiter, and they've reframed this in a very interesting way, right? So all this time we were watching the setting as just something in front of us. There's like the basement set out and there's the stage. Now look at this rendition, what happens when the actors play it out like this, okay? Just watch this part. Don't worry about the sound. There's not much dialogue. There's just a little bit of music there. But watch what's happening in, like, the... You couldn't hear the music either? Okay, so that's okay. What I wanted to say was you guys were commenting saying that you can't hear the video killer. There's essentially nothing to be heard. That's what I wanted you guys to look at. They're in dead silence. There were just some like music and sound effects in the background. But there's very little dialogue. Like the silences are so pronounced, right? There was complete, like, none of the characters in this trailer, they didn't speak a word. But what I wanted you guys to really focus on and really see was, we were talking about the watcher. Now, did you see here the people being watched are becoming aware that they're being watched? So this is a bit of a mind bending kind of a situation, right? Now, all this time we saw these two people on the stage. We saw the characters on the stage acting out their routines. Now in this version, the way that they had depicted it, they are becoming aware that somebody is in the dumbwaiter, or like there could be a camera, there could be some sort of a device that's watching them inside the dumbwaiter. Okay, that's what I wanted you to see. So in the play, there is the element of the watcher and somebody watching all of this, but like it was depicted in this clip, there is also the sense that the two people are aware that they're being watched, and they are kind of looking into you to see, like, it looks like us because we are viewing it, but they're looking into the dumbwaiter to kind of find out who is staring at them, Kayla. Okay, can you see how interestingly that was done? That's what Kinuri says. It's creepy. It is very creepy. So if you really get into the play, it is actually creepy. That play is it posits itself as a comedy. That's why it's a comedy of menace. It's actually a very, like, a underlying creepy, scary play. Okay. So what I wanted you to see is like how different renditions of the play can bring about different sort of like cool aspects, right? So did you notice that in this viewpoint, the way that this sort of was portrayed, this clip was portrayed, the audience, so we are the audience, then we become people who are inside the dumbwaiter. So when those two actors are peeping like this in at us, we are the people inside the dumbwaiter and we're staring at them. So do you see how the sort of lens changes? Instead of watching them acting out life on a stage, we are suddenly inside the dumbwaiter and we're watching them from inside. And does that mean we are the creepy people in power? Does that mean we are the sort of authorities that are sending these weird instructions? Who are we, right? So that very cool. Like, just wanted to put that for you to see. Okay, which brings us to the idea of surveillance. Okay, remember we were talking about dystopias and surveillance and being watched. What is surveillance? Surveillance is basically being monitored. The feeling or the actual fact that you're being watched, you are being like in a environment where your actions, your words, and what you say and do is constantly being observed and watched. Now, get to this idea of surveillance and go back to your play, look at what are the instances in the play where the characters get the distinct feeling that they are being watched. Okay? Go back to it and start now. Now this work that I'm telling you to do, since you're also like really close to your A-levels, this is the point where you go back to the drama, pull out your highlighters, pull out your pens and your pencils, start putting highlighting sections, putting notes. When you read through the play and be like, oh, this is the point where Gus becomes aware that somebody is watching them. This is where Ben starts to realize that there's somebody else who is like observing their movements. Okay, so what are the instances? Go back and look at those. How does this build the tension in the play? Okay, how is tension built up by the feeling that whatever you do and say, someone can hear and watch and someone is recording your movements? Like, what a creepy feeling, right? So then this tension results in building the atmosphere of menace. So look at how the play does that. How does it build this atmosphere of threat and intimidation and control? Because whoever is watching you has access to everything you're doing, right? They know what you're saying, they know what you're doing, they know how you're moving in the space, they know where you are. So if they want to basically kill you or like get rid of you, they know exactly where to find you. So, and look at the sense of paranoia and panic that this starts to create in the characters, right? Like Ben also starts feeling this sense of paranoia, but more than it, it's Gus. Gus is the primary character. He was the one questioning from the beginning, and he's the one getting more and more paranoid and panic. He's like, "Does this quote where he says, we've been through our tests, right? We've proved ourselves, right? We've always done our job. Like, why are they testing us? Why are they doing so?" Put yourself in Gus's situation, put yourself in Ben's situation. How would you like to be locked or trapped in a room with no way out, knowing that some creepy entity or person is constantly watching everything that you're doing? It's absolutely scary. And this is where I hope and some of you have read 1984. If not, read it in the future. This is George Orwell's book 1984, where his entire that book dystopian environment, that world building is built around the idea of surveillance, somebody constantly watching everything you do. You can't do anything beyond that. Okay, so think about these ideas of tension, menace, surveillance, and also look at how does tension and menace build up between the two characters. How do you feel tension building up between them as well? Are they observing each other? Is Ben observing Gus? Because towards the end of the play, Pinter leaves this pretty ambiguous. But towards the end of the play, do we have a clear answer whether Ben knew from the beginning that Gus was the one who was to be killed? Do we have any answer? Do we know whether Ben had already received the instruction that Gus was to be killed? Or did the plan change midway, and did these creepy powerful authorities decide to kill Gus because he started questioning the order of things towards the middle, like in the middle of the act? So think about those things, right? So this idea of 1984 surveillance and all of these were coming after post-World War and during the Cold War eras, where there was all this talk of Russian spies and US, like this idea of a society where you're constantly being monitored. And I wonder if you've ever heard of this phrase or this image. It's from 1984's George Orwell's book, but in that society there are posters everywhere you go. There are posters saying Big Brother is watching you. Okay, so this is from Orwell's book, but nobody knows who this Big Brother is, but this scary person called Big Brother is watching you, Kiela. There are posters everywhere, and that's the whole population is terrified. They don't know who Big Brother is, but you know that he is watching everything you do. So this is a very popular, like you will definitely come across this in future if you haven't now. It's a very popular phrase. And this Big Brother is watching you idea has continued even into today, even in our current day context in contemporary world. This idea of surveillance is still there. The idea that we're being watched, monitored, our likes, dislikes, our tastes, our friends, our relationships, everything is being monitored. And how is it being done? It's being done through social media. I think you're old enough to know that now, and that's the situation we're in right now, where everything is interlinked and people, there are data centers, there are data collection happening, like our data is constantly being collected, right? So let's see how this Pinter's themes and ideas play out in like the play, right? So there is the theme of the panopticon. Okay, so even Orwell's book and Pinter was largely influenced by Orwell. That's why I'm bringing George Orwell into this a lot as well. He was influenced by Orwell's ideas and these visions of a dystopian totalitarian society. But there was this philosopher who came up with an idea called the panopticon. So the panopticon it's a interesting sort of like a theory, and it is what modern in developed countries, in like the so-called developed countries, jail systems are built on this idea of the panopticon. where this jailers and the inmates are downstairs, like they are in this circular sphere where they are down here, and the guards are up there, and the guards can watch the occupants, the inmates, without the inmates knowing at any given moment whether they are watched or not. Okay, so they know that there is something up there that watches them, but they don't really know මේ හරියට මේ වෙලාවේ මෙතන කවුරු හරි ඉන්නවද නැද්ද කියලා you can't be sure. There could be somebody, there could not be somebody, but you are constantly under fear of being watched because you know there could be someone up there. Okay, so it's a bit of a mind-bending concept, but that's what the panopticon is. So if you do a Google search and just search up like panopticon jail systems or modern jail systems, if you watched, I think even Prison Break and stuff, they might have had that in certain scenes where the guards can see from upstairs what the inmates are doing down there. So there's this idea of the panopticon in Pinter's play as well. It's there in George Orwell's 1984 as well. So also think about this idea of present day CCTV. What about our CCTV cameras? What about social media? Like digital surveillance? Like how are we being given targeted ads? How does Instagram or Facebook know what we searched for, what our interests are? Someone constantly somewhere something is watching us. So that's the society we're in now. So unfortunately, modern day society and contemporary society has come into this space of the panopticon surveillance, constantly being monitored and watched, and these are these themes. Okay, the reason we're talking about them is these are the themes that come out in the Dumbwaiter, right? So how do Pinter's themes and ideas influence the play? Like how are they in the play? So you can see that Pinter was someone who had a early vision of totalitarianism. Like he was very worried that society was heading towards a point where these dominant, powerful few are going to subjugate and control the masses, right? So he was influenced by Orwell and Kafka. And so the play itself has a lot of social critique in it, right? So it sort of gives an absurdist commentary on blind obedience. What happens when you don't question authority? What happens when you just believe everything that somebody else tells you? Even when we're studying literature, remember since the day one, since we started like the sessions, I've been telling you, don't believe something just because I tell you. Like, don't take my word for it. I could be lying to you for all I know. For all you know, I could just be making up things in my head. Think for yourself, question, no matter what anybody tells you, whether it's like someone you respect, whether it's an elder, whether it's whoever, it's not a sign of disrespect to question. It's a sign of you exercising your individuality, your intelligence, and your rights. So blindly following authority always leads to situations like what happens in the Dumbwaiter, where Gus is his apprentice and the guy who Ben has been working with for so long, but your boss tells you to kill you, you kill your friend, like you kill your apprentice. So that's the kind of blind obedience to authority that Pinter is making a commentary on, right? He's talking about authoritarian power. Who dictates these? Who decides that out of two hitmen, one has to go? This person has to be killed, Kayla. And then also remember when Ben and Gus are talking about the process of the hits, like process of killing off these people, it's like, how do we do it? Oh, it's the same thing, the same time, like just in the same way. Yeah, like you go, you look at me, like I look at you, like they discuss some certain like a order or like a strategy that they always do it. So there's a power structure that they follow. They don't question whether they should do it or not. Gus is the one who starts questioning. That's why he's killed. That's why he's done away with, because he is the one who starts becoming conscious and really thinking about these systems. Like, what the hell are we doing, right? Okay, and another theme that Pinter is talking about is the futility of working class subservience, because his characters are working class. They are like generally the plays that he writes are about more lower middle class, like poorer people who are just trying to get through their lives and do their jobs. But no matter how subservient you are, no matter how much you follow your orders, it's futile. Like, it's not going to get you anywhere. Look at Gus. He followed orders for the entirety of his life, and then he was killed off the moment he became a liability, right? So Pinter was an anti-war, conscientious objector. So, like I said, he refused military service because he was like, I'm not going to be part of this. So he really is trying to get you thinking. So again, to answer Kinuri's question about, is this a depiction of human life? It is a depiction of human life, but not a common everyday life situation which happens to everyone. It's a depiction of human life through showing a situation that gets you thinking about these things, that gets you thinking about the meaning of human existence, right? So it's more of like a philosophical approach. So when you start, like before I get there, let me just finish this line. So Pinter was very bothered about this idea of dehumanizing, of blind state violence and power structure. So these are all the things that he has included into this play, right? So what I was going to tell you about this absurdist style, you probably haven't done more theaters in this genre, like in this sort of school or this movement. But for example, there is Beckett's. It was Beckett's, right? Yeah, I think it was Beckett's, Waiting for Godot. That play, when you get to it and when you start doing it, it's Kinu asks, like, is this real life that's depicted? If you watch that play, you will watch it throughout and you'll be like, what the hell is happening, right? Like, none of it makes sense, but at the end of the day, it makes perfect sense, right? So that in that play, there are two people. There's an older dude and like a younger man, I think, and they are just sitting under a tree. I think you might have seen a scene from it in one of the videos I was showing you. There's just a tree on stage, no props, no setting, nothing else. I think they're sitting on just on two rocks or something, and there's a tree in the middle. That's it. And these two are eternally just talking about some guy called Godot or Godot. Some people say Godot, some people say Godot, like, who is supposed to come. So they are like, when is Godot coming? Oh, I don't know. I think he was supposed to come at 12 o'clock. But he's not here yet. Like, isn't it 12:30? And they're like, no, maybe he's coming at 2. So the entire play is about these two people waiting for Godot, and nothing happens. Literally nothing happens in the play. I think at one point some other character just comes there, and this is absurdism, right? It's real life, but it's also not real life. Because in real life, where are two people going to be sitting on a stage, like waiting for some random person to come for hours and hours? It's not going to happen, right? But in a deeper philosophical sense, isn't this real life? Isn't it what we're doing? Like every day, we keep waiting for something to happen. We keep waiting for our life to be better. We keep thinking that at some point in the future, we will be happy, or like we'll be rich, or we'll be educated enough, or we will get something. We're constantly waiting for something that's futile, right? So absurdist theater is entirely about this symbolism. It's about philosophy. It's about getting you to think. Okay, so yeah, I think that's the gist of Dumbwaiter. So it's a masterpiece of tension and a comedy of menace, as we discussed. And as you hear through the descriptions, and even when you go back and rewatch it now with all these ideas, you will see that it is a masterpiece. Like, it's a one act play. It doesn't even have multiple acts and multiple, like, many scenes. It's a shorter play, but look how much he achieves in that short time period, right? So I had a little slide for you guys on how to select and analyze quotes for your essay answers, because I know now you're like, exams are getting really close, and now you've read through the play, you've watched the play, and you should be familiar with the play now. Now is getting ready for the actual essay answers you're doing. So now that we've discussed the main themes, ideas, and styles in the play, revisit all these. Think deeply along these lines, right? Think about all the things that we discussed today. And then note down the ideas that really strike you. Like, what sort of ideas do you feel were like really important to you, or like you? And then always push your brain to think. I keep telling like read the script, Go back to the drama, now go back to the script and start reading it and think of it in these angles that we were talking about, right? Then categorize those sections. So those sections, like for example, where is the absurd in this? Where are the power structures? Where are those moments of surveillance? So think about those sections and read through the play, identifying quotes that fit into those, right? So for example, what are the instances of surveillance? So keep that, when you're keeping that in your head and you're reading through the play, you will say, oh, here someone there is surveillance here, like these people are being watched here, someone is watching here, so you will note those in the play. Then things like blind obedience to authority versus questioning, okay, and then elements of menace, examples of absurdity. So all those themes and stuff, go through the play and start picking quotes, like not like 20-30 quotes, but highlight like 5-10 quotes for each or something. And once you've gone through the entire play, pick and choose a few quotes to remember. You don't have to remember everything. You can't memorize the entire play. Now this is a shorter play. You can't memorize an entire long play or an entire, I don't know, novel or something. So pick and choose things that are very particular, like strike you. Like for example, in terms of surveillance, oh, there was this moment where Gus said this, he quoted this. So remember that, and then, if possible, commit those to memory. So remember that you can't memorize everything. So be selective as long as you know the play, as long as you know your stuff. You don't have to know all the quotes by heart. Just pick some top quotes, try, and when you're writing your answers, either your practice answers or at the exam, try as much as you can to use direct quotes. But if you can't remember the exact quote at that point, don't beat yourself up about it. It's okay to paraphrase, okay? Puluvan taram, try to write the direct quotation. If you can't, it's completely fine, paraphrase, because what's important is the fact that you know the gist of something, not that you can like a parrot, like parrot out the entire play. That's not what's important. Just know your stuff, okay? So that's the tips that I can give you for selecting your quotes and remembering. So now I think you would have a better idea and understanding of the play. Now it comes to picking the quotes, preparing for your answers, and getting ready with what exactly you want to say, right? So there is an end, I think, quote. I think this is poor Gus who says this. He goes into a panic and he's like, "We've got nothing left, nothing. Do you understand?" And I think he's trying to tell this to Ben. So yeah, I just ended with that quote, and this was from one of the scenes of the play. I found it interesting that they had a paper with the quote saying they are always watching. Yeah, so that brings us to the end of it. It was I think we did around 2 hours, but it was intensive and I think we covered almost everything. Any questions do you guys have? How did you find this did it enhance your understanding of the play? Do you feel more confident about the Dumbwaiter now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you now.
So I did actually watch that video that you sent, and I was kind of confused, but also like towards the ending, because I was like, what might happen to Gus? Like, what's his fate? And I understood the lesson much better because of the way you explained it today.
Okay. Why were you confused about Gus? Is it because unpredictable and unsure what's really happening kind of a feel?
I was like, is Ben gonna like shoot him? Like he's his friend?
Okay, so that's also part of like that feeling of menace, no? Like that feeling of threat and unsure, like this unpredictable danger. Like is there real danger or is there not danger? So yeah, like that's also the Kinuri and Mithili.
This is one thing, but I don't know if I like properly put it into words. I'm not very good at that, even though I talk a lot. So it's like in the drama there's like always this contrasting, and like there's situations that are not connected to each other at all, like especially the news and everything. And then when they are like talking about it as the audience, we also kind of like listen to their story, right? What is he trying to say? Like, um, there's this man, this is happening to him, and we are like, oh, it's like a new story, so we listen to it, and then we are going with Den or Gus or whoever's talking, we are going with him, or like him throughout his dialogues, and we are going to their part. And then at once the author puts in a pause or silence, and then we are like reminded, oh, that's not what you have to be focusing on. You have to come back. This is the main thing they are doing. They are waiting for someone who is their target to murder them. So like you're going off track, come back. It's like his signal, and I think that says a lot more than what is like what we see generally, and I think it implies something even more deep.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's like a interesting observation, and also that's the whole fact about absurdism or absurdist dialogue or absurdist, like most of the time they're talking about stuff and you're like, what are these guys talking about? Like, why are we even watching this? Or what sense is all of this? But on the outer layer, like on the outset, it actually seems like there's no sense to any of it, but it actually makes perfect sense. So when you start looking at the layers now, for example, like let me tell you two instances. For example, the moment the play opens, Ben and Gus are talking about this old man who got run over, right? And they're talking about like, that's ridiculous, right? Like what is the meaning of, like, they themselves are talking about the absurdity of that situation. Like, how the hell could an old man trying to cross a road get run over by a lorry? But the thing they are talking about is the absurdity of life, where life is so unpredictable that a person who was living a perfectly normal life one day is killed the very next day, right? And if you think about it, isn't that exactly what happens to Gus as well? A person who was playing out his role, just doing things that he was doing on an everyday basis, at the end of the play he's dead, like, or he's about to die, or we presume that he's gonna die, right? So and then there's the idea of like, you think that they are going on and on about a broken lavatory, like they won't stop about it. They're talking about, does the toilet flush? No, it doesn't flush, like it's broken, I don't know why it's flushed. Then they're talking about a ball cock. Now this is where like the humor is supposed to come in, right? So the ball cock is broken, so like should we fix it? Is there a way to fix it? Like, now on the outside it seems like nonsensical conversation, like it sounds like a really stupid dialogue, and why did the playwright even include this, and why are we having to go through this? Why do we have to listen to this as an audience, right? But if you really think about it, the way that we were analyzing and looking at it, that lavatory being broken, even though the dialogue seems absurdist, what's the inner theme that is there? Like basic dehumanization, basic requirements of human beings not being met. They can't go to the washroom. They, like I said, if they are stuck in there forever and nobody comes to let them out, they are like in a prison situation where you keep sort of, you have to do your business and go to the bathroom over and over again without a way to flush the, like, waste. So that on the outside it looks comical and absurd and stupid and like meaningless conversation, but on the inside there is some depth to it. So this is what absurdism does. It looks like meaningless and then pulls you back into the real issues. Like, wow, okay, I am talking nonsense. Look at me, I'm talking about a guy who's rolling a rock up and down a hill. Now on the outset it's like, the hell are you talking about? Like, why are we reading a book about a dude who's rolling a rock up and rolling it back down? But the deeper meaning is like, isn't that what we all are doing every single day? Isn't that what we do? So like that's what absurdism is basically about. Okay, Kinuri, final, what thoughts and questions and comments? Okay, so Kino says that it favorite text in the syllabus, but there were too many layers to uncover and it's clear now. Okay, so I hope the layers are clear now. So there is not a lot of layers in. I hope the layers were clear now. So yeah, unpack the text as you go. Just keep looking through the layers, look through the different angles. And I think I pretty much said almost everything I have to say about the Dumbwaiter. So hope you guys enjoyed the class. Okay? I'm gonna end this now. And I will see if I can do the glass menagerie on Sunday. I'll drop a message if I can get it ready by then, and then let's see how we can take the rest of the weeks. Okay, good night, guys, and yeah, get your books, reread the play, rewatch it, and have fun, most importantly. Okay?
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Aki. Good night.
Okay, see you next time.
Thank you, Aki.
All right, bye.